Hey everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. Today's episode was a lot of fun. I'm talking to a cigar guy. I'm talking to a guy that's a true entrepreneur. He started his first business out of college. Like 2 weeks later, he's been running a business since 2007 with his buddies. His name's Colin Hirdman, and they've got three companies. And we talk a little bit about his journey, but we talk a little bit about cigars, but he's got a company that if you have any interest at all around LinkedIn and ways to use it as a tool to help you generate a community, generate business, go grab a cigar, grab a cocktail, strap in for another impactful episode of Sales and Cigars. Thanks. So, Colin, appreciate you taking some time. Welcome to the program. We've been looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, as a I, Walter. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you having me on.
So, I like to open up with, is there a book that you gift or you reread on a regular basis?
Yeah, the book that it's really had a wonderful impact on me as an entrepreneur and also as a salesperson is The Go Giver. And I have given that book out. I have the hardcover, as well as the audio book. So it's something I like to re-listen to as well, and just be in that giver mindset. I think that's really important this day and age, as nobody really wants to be sold. And so if you go into that giver mindset, it really makes sales and growing your business a lot easier.
Ultimately, we're helping people if we're doing
That's right.
sales right,
Yep.
and giving information and educating them. We're not in the 1950s anymore.
That's right.
And I saw a post today on LinkedIn from Anthony that just was like, stop using 1950s techniques
Yeah.
and today, because, like you said, people don't want to be sold. They want to make sure that they're making a good decision. And if we have the right product for them, we should be able to do that. And if we don't have a fit, we should be honest and say it's not a fit. And
That's right.
you know, give them some guidance to go someplace else or be a
Agreed.
resource.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
so that's a new one. Nobody's offered up that book, and I've been asking that question for about 6 months, and so
Sure. Yeah.
that's
No,
cool.
it's a great read. It's easy to understand, and it's done in story format, and really brings the points home on how you need to be as a salesperson, as a business owner.
Awesome. So, look, as a business owner, you've got an interesting story. Why don't you just take us on a little journey, help us understand how you got to where you are.
Yeah.
You've had lots of businesses, exits, growths. You've been doing it for a while with some fun people. So, why don't
Hmm.
you kind of share your story a little bit, and then we'll get into some details.
Yeah. No, sounds great. So yeah, I fell into entrepreneurship. Really, I graduated college with a criminal justice degree, and I never used it. I never took a business class, accounting class, marketing class in college. And a week after I graduated from college, I started my first company. So I have never made a resume, and I've just been making it up ever since. And the the first business that I started, I had that for a little over a decade and ended up selling that business. It was a marketing communications company. Started off as a direct mail business, morphed into doing email marketing and web design and custom development once the internet really started to take hold. And yeah, as I transitioned out of that business, it was just pretty much serendipity. Two buddies of mine that I grew up with, one was moving back to Minneapolis from Uruguay. He had been down there for a decade. And another one was helping transition a children's publishing company into a sale and kind of working himself out of a job. So the three of us got together. This was in 2007. And we're like, let's start something. And so we did. We created Monkey Island Ventures, which is our holding company. And Monkey Island is the name of a park that the three of us used to play at when we were kids. So we've all known each other since we were about 5 years old. So it's been really a wonderful thing to be in business with those guys, and we came up with some kind of we call them like the 5 Fs around uh, friendship, finances, family, freedom, and fun. So
Mm.
those are the 5 Fs that we live by. And I would say, being in business with each other has gone really, really well. We've always put our personal relationships ahead of our businesses. We also know that the most business decisions you make aren't going to make or break your business. So if one of us feels, really strongly about something and the other two are kind of more meh, then we'll try it. So we've failed more than we've succeeded. We've started a lot of software as a service companies. We did a Kickstarter and launched a smart water meter that we got funded through Kickstarter. Built that. We have a digital marketing company. We have a software development company, and we have a new service we can talk about called Rainmaker a little further on in the discussion. But yeah, the three of us have been in business. We employ about 40 people, and yeah, just really have loved kind of the entrepreneurial path and what it's been able to give to us as founders.
Hey everyone, Walter Crosby, your host of Sales and Cigars. Just wanted to give you a heads up that next month we're going to do a series of episodes on prospecting. We're going to cover all of the basics, all the fundamentals, the things that are going to help make your sales team be consistent hunters. What are the prospecting tactics? What are the things that we know that work, right? So how do we get prepared to do this? I'm going to go through all of this in 4 episodes. They're going to be just me. I'm going to be talking fast. I'm going to be talking about what we know works, what we know has worked for a long time, and probably what your sales team isn't doing. So if you're a sales manager, if you're a salesperson, if you're a sales leader or a business owner who wants to help your sales team, these episodes will be short and to the point, and they will be helpful. Go grab a cocktail, grab a cigar, and tune in for those upcoming episodes. Thank you. What, what's funny is, I mean, you've started something right out of school. A lot of respect for that. But at this point, you're pretty much unemployable by somebody, right? You've been doing this stuff on your own,
Yeah.
working with your buddies, and just following your path. Um,
Mhm.
I love that. Run through the 5 Fs again, because I think that will really. I mean, I have a lot of folks that are EO members and run EOS,
Yeah.
and when I ask them like, what are you doing this for? Like, what's the end game? What are you trying to accomplish? And I
Mhm.
hear words similar to what you said. So can you
Mhm.
run through those again one more time for the
Yeah.
audience?
Yeah. So it's family, it's finances, it's freedom,
Hmm.
it's fun, and
Putting
finance.
pressure on you.
Yeah, you are. So,
Family, finance, freedom, fun. I have to
yep,
go
now
back
I'm
and look.
forgetting the other one. Yep.
Um, but that idea of freedom.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess the one that we missed is the most obvious one. Friendship.
Yes, but and you put that first. But the
Yeah. Yep.
the idea of freedom to me, if you're running a business, you're entrepreneurial, you're a business owner, however you want to couch it. The end game is to have some freedom to do all of the other F's,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
you're have the freedom to like take a day to go do this, take a long weekend to go do that, have the resources to go do the thing that you've always wanted to do, and know that you can come back to your business and it's going to be there, it's going to be operational.
Hmm.
um, to me that's the definition of freedom.
Yeah.
um, I mean those are great. They're not really core values, they're just like guiding lights for you and your pals, right?
Yeah, yeah, and let's be honest, being an entrepreneur when you're kind of the only one that owns a company, owns a business, it can be really lonely at the top. And if you don't have someone to kind of bounce ideas off of, someone to share the highs and lows of kind of going through growing a company, it's a tough spot to be in, really tough. So, having that kind of built into the business with people that I know I can trust down to their core has been instrumental in my success, but also just in my enjoyment of life and in growing these businesses.
I have a couple of clients who they're their business with a friend, right? Some of them like been
Yeah.
friends since they were kids. Some of them have been friends since college. But I've always thought of that as, it there's pluses and minuses to it. Everybody's got to be able to put the hat on that they need to put on, and then be able to take it off and then go have a beer, and
Yeah.
deal with that. And I think that takes maturity. I think it takes clarity of roles and agreement. An operating agreement is like, how are we going to do this? And
Hmm.
those five F's give you some structure to work with, a framework. Is there anything that you see as a negative there, that being with three of your friends, that uh, you know day in and day out?
No, no,
Honest, I love
I really don't. No, I mean they're not. I've been in business with them, with the two of them, since 2007. So I've had plenty of years. We've had plenty of struggles. We've closed down businesses. We've started businesses. Like there's enough history there for me to really have time to reflect. And no, they're with those two. Nope, there's not a negative.
So it's going in with that solid relationship. There's the trust has to be there, the ability to communicate. I mean, I'll go back to what you said. Being a CEO is lonely because you can't always share what you're thinking with your team, even your
Right.
lieutenants, right? The
Yeah.
core leadership team. Um,
Yeah.
if you're doubting yourself, you don't necessarily want to share that. I mean, there's
Right.
transparency, but there's still, and then bouncing ideas off of other people, having that core group. A mastermind is what Carnegie used to call it.
Sure.
um, I mean, those are, but you have your own little mastermind within your companies.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. No, it's great. It doesn't mean that, um, you still don't rely on outside, mentors, or that you don't heavily rely on employees to give input, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, knowing you can talk literally about anything, family, talk about, you know, the businesses, like we're very, very supportive of each other. And I would imagine that, especially with, younger generations where, being more empathetic and open and honest is are virtues that are, I think, really appreciated more than they were even when I was young. That I would encourage more people to think about going into business with their friends. They just need to go into it eyes wide open, make sure that they know what the priorities are, and understand what each other's roles are going to be, and that can shift and change over time too. So, I used to be the president of Augury, our digital marketing company, and about 2.5 years ago, I left that position and Josh took over. So there's, it's you just have to be open to a lot of different scenarios and just have frank conversations and just know that you're there to support each other and to have everyone win.
But I think that a lot of people talk about being open and honest and transparent, and we're friends. But when push comes to shove, you're in a moment. You do have to be able to take that step back. It's like, maybe he's right. Maybe
Yep.
that thing that he said is true, and
Yeah.
and being able to work through that. I had a partner that we started a business together,
Hmm.
um, and we grew it pretty quickly, um, and it was fun right up until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, and we sort of reached this impasse, and I think a lot of it had to do with immaturity
Hmm.
on both our parts.
Yep.
We didn't want the same things
Hmm.
out of the business, and and I think we didn't do a good job of creating that agreement on the front end, right? And I'm not
Sure.
talking about putting it on paper. I'm
Yeah.
just like, what do you want out of this? And I wanted to grow fast and be, growth oriented and turn it into
Mhm.
something that was saleable or that we could, manage and just and not necessarily be in it every day.
Right.
And we had different objectives, and mine wasn't right and his wasn't wrong. That's not how I'm looking at it. It's just that we weren't aligned, and we should have had that figured out in advance. So I think
Agreed.
if you're really going out and you're looking at doing a business with somebody, I think there's lots of advantages to it, because you can, it's lonely, and you got to be, having an idea like, is this a dumb idea? And then you throw it on the table, and then the guy
Mhm.
or gal look at you like, yeah, that's really crazy, right? And
Mhm.
here's why.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
okay, right? And you need to be able to hear that.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're not going at the same place, you're not growing together. It's kind of like a marriage.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Communication needs to be there. Um, it but you need to grow together and recognize that, that's not something I want to do, but it's okay for somebody to, go explore that sport or go explore that hobby
Mhm.
without the other one.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's really clarity on the front side of it is
Mm.
going to help. It sounds like
Absolutely.
you guys had that in spades.
Yep. We did, and we kind of leaned into going into business together in ways that we started building stuff, getting traction, and yeah, really went into it. I think eyes wide open, and again, once when we started the business, we had already had you know decades of experience knowing each other.
Yeah,
So,
and experience in business, which
yep,
also helps.
that
Knowing
does.
what you're getting into,
Right.
and having sales and operational experience, which is all important. So
Agreed.
there's I think one of the businesses that you have that you've started might, we can talk about that, because I think there's some value in there for, every time I get together with a group of people, they're always looking for ways to create a network, create opportunities, create leads, but and they don't have a really good structure. The idea is
Mm.
there, but they don't have the means. And I
Yeah.
think you might have, some ideas for folks, to talk through, and
Yeah.
then, we can talk about the business and how they might get a hold of you. But,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
rainmaker.
Yeah. So like I said, we have our digital marketing company. So I've been doing digital marketing, myself for, probably close to 15 years now. Um, and then we have Cloudburst, which is, that's our software development company where we're working with founders or entrepreneurs to build software. So when I left as president of Agurian, my focus was very much so on building a software product for half of my time, and the other half of my time was working with the Cloudburst clients and helping them. Once their software is built, they need to market the software. They need to drive people to the landing pages or to the website and start generating revenue. So, and we of course have built our own products, software products for ourselves. So the last 5 years, I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of growth hacking in email and on LinkedIn. Well, probably 5 months ago, I was just talking to my business partners. I'm like, this kind of process that I've built using automation on LinkedIn is really doing well. And I said, I think a lot more founders, salespeople, business coaches could utilize a service on LinkedIn because I was having really really good success. So the last 4 or 5 months, I have started to stand up a service called Rainmaker, and what I'm doing essentially is I'm taking the manual tasks that you do on LinkedIn and I'm automating those. So I call it authentic automation. So the number one thing that everyone needs to remember when they're on LinkedIn is nobody wants to be sold. Okay. The second thing people need to remember is being authentic. And you need to be authentic in two ways. Number one, you need to be authentic to who you are as a person, right? Which means you need to speak in, the language in which you normally communicate. Okay. So you don't want to try and be someone that you're not on LinkedIn. You need to be who you are. The second thing is you also need to be authentic then to your brand. Okay. Whatever brand you're representing, you need to also reflect that brand and be authentic to that brand's voice as well. So what I've essentially, come up with is looking at these manual actions that everybody wants to be taking and should be taking and automating those uh, in ways that are literally happening on the LinkedIn account. Nothing is happening outside of LinkedIn. And so some of the things that your audience could think about if they want to grow their network and grow leads and sales on LinkedIn is there's some strategies that I've implemented that have worked out really, really well. And I can go over a few of those, and your audience could literally begin implementing these as soon as they hear them.
So Ryan, I appreciate you taking some time to jump on the program here. I wanted to kind of explain to people what they're probably seeing is they're not probably, they're definitely seeing a new look and feel of Sales and Cigars. And I wanted to kind of do the Wizard of Oz thing, the guy behind the curtains. Welcome.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and yours was one of the favorite ones that we've redesigned, near and dear to my heart. So, I mean, we have a crew that does it, but I personally did the stuff for your show. So, thank you for having me on.
The connection there is yours is you do a group thing in person. Is it Scotch and Cigars or bourbon?
Yeah, it's cigars and scotch. It's a little bit opposite of yours. And it's a networking group for entrepreneurs. We get together. It's basically an excuse to drink at 3:30 on a Thursday every week. We get together. We share cigars. A lot of us travel. We bring stuff back. We do charity stuff. That right there. We throw charity events every year to raise money for locally here. But we have that cigar type culture like you do. And so when you came on board, I'm like, I'm going to do that one personally.
You kind of jumped on that real fast and made it, like it felt like you were into it. There was something driving it, and that all makes sense. In the cigar community, I don't all my guests. I always ask that question: any relationship with cigars, past or present? And I guess yesterday, love him. He's been a mentor for 30 years. He's never had a cigar, never wants to have a cigar, doesn't like to be around cigars, which is cool, right? But yeah, what I found is the community of people with cigars. I can go anywhere in this country and some other countries, and feel welcome, feel some camaraderie with fellows that I have nothing in common with other than the stick.
Oh, 1,000%. I don't travel so much now, but years past, most of my life I've traveled. And anytime that you find that nice cigar bar or lounge or something like that, you immediately walk in, you grab a cigar and make 17 new friends. That's just the way that it is. Because even if you're from different aspects of life, different industries, different whatever, you'll always bond over the experience of sitting down, sitting in that lounge, smoking the cigar. So it's one of those things that in travel I've always loved.
It doesn't matter the demographic either, right? Because sometimes, especially in this country, right, there's people that are sort of align themselves against each other. I was in Miami for a couple of days, and we went to two different cigar bars, and I was the minority in each one of them, but it was like I felt totally welcome. We had a good time. With the tables are before the end of the night are talking shit back and forth to each other.
Yes,
it was, and the one was the guy was like, "Well, you're not really a member." And I'm like, member of what? He goes, well, we have a VIP section back here. And he kind of showed us. And I'm like, it's freaking empty, dude. We're going to take care of the waitress. We're going to load up on cocktails tonight. And he's like, all right. So he set us up in the back. And, the guys that were next to us realized that we weren't going to be trouble. And he's like, you guys aren't members. How'd you get in here? And like, charm and personality. and they bought us a drink because of that. Cool guys, always.
One of the other shifts I'm seeing too, I was recently in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and they have a new cigar bar set up on a corner. And in my travels, and not just always, it's more, white collar people in the cigar area, stuff like that. The last couple, like you said, I've went to, there was more of a blue collar element, workers, gig workers, factory workers, stuff like that. And I liked that. I thought that was a good shift to that, because when you like cigars, you enjoy cigars, and you do that, it doesn't really matter what the income bracket, or like you said, if they're like you or look like you just bond over that thing.
Yeah. It's an equalizer, and it I don't know. It's a vice. It's an expensive hobby, but I don't know. I find it liberating to go anywhere, even in Vegas. It's there's so many cigar shops in Vegas that you can hang out at. You can't spend enough time there. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about. I want to get to Titan and how you guys help people, but who. There's a lot of people that think they should have a podcast, and God knows there's every asshole in the world has a podcast. But,
yes.
And that's, to me, the greatest title I have ever heard. There's a guy in Britain, and the title of his podcast is Another Asshole with a Podcast. That's his title.
That's a perfect title.
Yeah, it is. And I wish I would have thought of it. But so who should be thinking about, getting a podcast? Like how can it help them in business? How can it help them just get stuff off their chest? Like who's that person?
That's a very big question, because I think podcasts are like a Swiss Army knife, right? There's multiple uses for a podcast. So when you're like, who should have one? I'm currently in the middle of filming a new newsletter or series about podcasting. And in that, we kind of I started podcasting in 2010. Right. So kind of on the verge of just when this thing started, when it was like the little brother of audio, or little brother of radio, and the step cousin of audiobooks, or whatever it was back in the day. Right. Yep. And you move on. So before, it was people that wanted to be uncensored, unfiltered, or just didn't have the stroke to be on radio. As we move through that, and as it became video podcasting, we have all these derivatives, like the kid streamers that live in their mom's basement and make $80 million a year, like Mr. Beast, is a version of podcasting, because that's streaming. So I'm going to narrow and niche this down to business people, and in business, what you need to look for in podcasts, because it's such a broad topic. When you're in business, if you're a thought leader, an author, if you want to share your stories, if you feel like you have something to teach people, I think that's the number one person that should think about having a podcast, because it gives you a long form, serialized platform to be able to tell your story, your struggles, your successes, while branding your business and who you are. We all know that in business, there's a lot of thought leaders, authors, speakers, speaking events become a thing, all of those. TEDx. Anybody interested in those needs a podcast. They need to do that, because whether, like you said, it's getting stuff off your chest, building your brand, doing those things, it puts you face to face with your clientele. It puts you face to face with your potential customers. It puts you face to face with potential business partners. Networking is one of the biggest boons that I've seen in podcasting, that just like me and you sitting here doing this. And then if I know a guy, I'll send them to you, and back and forth, and the networking. So any sort of business where you're a leader, thought leader, where you're wanting to project who you are and what your business does, your podcast is going to be one of the number one things that you should have on your repertoire. Now, it doesn't replace your other marketing. It doesn't take over your other marketing, but it's that personal face-to-face with that marketing, and with whoever you want to expand your business with. They really get time to set and know you, and figure out if you are just another asshole with a podcast, or if there's somebody that's worth setting down and taking the time for. So then the second group of people that needs a podcast is just just people that want to help people in business. Um, I think that's the biggest thing. You don't have to be a CEO, a thought leader, or want speaking events. But let's say that you're niched. Like I know a lady that has all about taxes. When I first got into business, I screwed up a couple times in taxes. Thanks IRS for letting me know about that, and stuff like that. So it also lets people understand and gives in a world society that we learned from YouTube, podcast, stuff like that. If you're an educator in business and that's what your brand is, you should be the second person in line looking for those podcasts. We refer things all the time. I listen to podcasts, watch YouTube, look at industry experts, program experts, their podcasts, tech podcasts, just to involve my business. That's podcasting because it's not one person doing it. So you can always look into that realm and find more education, more tips, more ways to grow your business in a lateral sense instead of just listening to a thought leader of people that are common with you and growing your business that way too.
No,
So
let me
yeah,
ask
go
you
ahead.
a question
Yeah,
because I love the idea of sharing one or two ideas that somebody can implement. I mean, that's
yeah.
that value in educating, but the there's a ton of tools out there around LinkedIn. They come and go, but
Hmm.
you've it sounds like you've created something that is what if we had the time and the discipline to go do these things, we're not going to upset LinkedIn, right? Because they
Yep,
kind of
yep,
get their panties in a bunch every once in a while if you do something that they don't like. Uh,
exactly. Yep.
and it isn't about because I get tons of messages on LinkedIn or connection requests, and like I'll connect, but I know it's like, all right, is it going to be 24 hours or 36 hours before the pitch,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just, I'll politely decline, and then if they persist, delete them. But we're not talking about any of that, right? We're talking about being giving and being helpful.
Exactly. Right. That's the number one thing that you have to do. Yep. Yep. So, uh, yeah, nobody, like I said, nobody wants to be sold on LinkedIn. And what you want to do is, think about who's the audience that you want to be in front of. Okay, nobody's on LinkedIn just to make friends, right? People are on LinkedIn because they want to network and that they want to build up their network, and eventually they want that to contribute to their income or to revenue or to building some type of community. So that's LinkedIn is a business network, so people are on there to further their business endeavors and whatever that might look like for them. What I talk about, and one of the with at least with Rainmaker, it's a white glove service. So my clients are coming to me because they also want to understand strategies and ensure that they're doing things the right way. So the number one thing you want to do is think about your audience and who you want to be in front of. Who do you want to make connections to? And you can use regular LinkedIn for that. You can also use Sales Navigator for that to start building out these discrete audiences. The other thing that you want to think about then is what value can I bring to them, right? And when I talk about the value, a lot of that falls into education, right? How can I educate the people that I'm trying to reach out to in ways that I'm bringing value to them? It's kind of like that go giver mindset of how can I help you? How can I help this person out? And so you have to be really open and honest around what does that look like. And so you have to that's where effort needs to be put in. So have you, written a book? Have you written articles? Are there articles that you've seen that your audience would potentially want? Are you creating any live streams or webinars? Are you doing speaking? Like what types of things are you doing that your audience would want to learn from? And that's really where you start to provide the value.
So
A big.
if somebody wrote a book and the intent of the book was to help a particular group of business owners
Hmm.
understand that what they think is their problem really isn't the problem. Their problem's over here,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
it kind of cuts to the chase. That's their problem. And you could use that in this service because you give that book away and you're like, this might help you. Is that the kind of thing you're
Yeah. Or
talking about, or is it more
yep.
complicated?
No, it could be that, but maybe what you're doing is kind of slicing and dicing up aspects of the book that you've written, where, or maybe an article that you've written, where you're, you're reaching out to this audience to become like a first connection, and if they connect back with you, then maybe you're sending your first message is, hey, thanks for connecting, look forward to learning more about you, and you leave it at that. But maybe 5 or 7 days later, you do send another message to that person, but that message might be something to the effect of, you know I wrote this article on this subject, and I thought you might be interested in this specific thing that was maybe a very valid, salient point that a lot of business owners or your clients find really valuable, that you're now sharing with that individual. Or maybe there's an event that maybe you're going to do a live stream to address that pain point where a lot of founders kind of lose their way, right? And
Mhm.
you're just letting them know that that I have this event coming up next week, and I just wanted to invite you to it, where maybe you're putting in like the LinkedIn invite. But I think you'd be surprised, like across all of my clients right now, we're getting a connection rate between 20 and 50% across the board, and we're getting a reply rate of between 10 and 30%. And we're reaching out to like 25 people a day, Monday through Friday, during normal working hours. So again, what you're wanting to do is to leverage LinkedIn the way that you would if you're going to do this all manually, but you're bringing in an element of automation that is still using your authentic voice. You're still bringing value. You're still helping those that you would want to help, and further that in a way that hopefully generates relationships that potentially is going to generate revenue down the line. But it is more of kind of the mid to long term game. But I can say that the instant you turn it on, you're gonna start getting connections right away. You're gonna start getting replies, and it's going to get your mind thinking about other types of things that you can do on LinkedIn, that are a little bit more advanced than what we've talked about to this point. But it 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 that LinkedIn is just a wonderful network, a wonderful platform, and more people are relying on it all the time. And the last thing I'll say right here is 90% plus people that go on LinkedIn are lurkers. They're not posting content. Uh, so I think you'd be surprised how, if you just are somewhat consistent in posting content, and if your network is continuing to grow week in, week out, the impact that you can have. Just today, I was in the office and I overheard a conversation with one of my business partners. He was talking to one of our employees, and um, he got a lead from someone that had seen some of the content that he was posting on LinkedIn. And in this conversation, the woman told him that she's seen his content enough that she almost feels like she knows him. And so there is value in spending some time on creating content and getting your authentic voice out there. um, but if you're using something like Rainmaker or any other tool, to really kind of augment the speed and velocity in which you can create a larger network, and then start implementing some of these strategies, I think you'd be surprised at the traction that you could get.
Uh, I think it is a mid to longer term game, and I think you made some really solid points there. I'm going to try to summarize that. It's being authentic in your voice,
Number
and
one.
and trying to cheat that with AI tools, right? That to get them to write something and copy and paste. I I don't think that works, right? You really got to be putting your voice into it, your words, speaking the way you think, and being consistent about the topics that you're talking about. And what you can't be 27 different things, right? You really need to focus on those few things where you can have impact. But
Yes.
I think probably the most important thing I heard that I don't think people spend enough time on is creating that I call it an ideal client profile, and,
ICP.
and then niching that down to a really, really tight group that whenever you're posting something, they're going to say, "Yeah, I got that. That
Hmm.
I might have solved that," or
Hmm.
but like that's an interesting take on it, right? So that everything you do on the platforms speaks to those people, and I think people are afraid that if they go too small, that then they're not speaking to enough people, and I think it's just the opposite.
Hmm.
If we really niche it into that ideal persona, that ideal profile, that ICP,
Yeah.
that we're really talking to another person, and when we
Yes.
write, we should be thinking of that person. Am I?
Exactly. Right. Yes. No, you're spot on. And to take it to like almost of a tactical level, um, with some of the early stage success with Rainmaker is with founders, owners, with business coaches, and with salespeople. I have created a deck, and I use this in a live stream that I do once a week on LinkedIn. And what I'm doing is I'm expanding my network out to those three groups. But then I will also then tailor my deck, and really like 95% of the deck stays the same. The other 5% is just a little bit of nuance between, business coaches, founders, and salespeople. So now that I have that deck made, I have no more prep. So every week I get to do the live stream and I can tailor it to whichever of those three groups that I wanted to go after that week. And then I can use my audience, and I can send invites out to those specific audiences and say, hey, I'm doing a LinkedIn live stream on how to grow your LinkedIn network leads and sales for business coaches, right? Or for founders. And you're right, when they see that message and they see, oh, I'm a founder, like this is made for me, or I'm a business coach, this is made for me. You're going to get a lot higher acceptance rate and interest for people that you'll be targeting. And so the other thing that I'll say, and this is a strategy that I am telling more of my clients to use, which is, spend some time, create whatever that presentation is that you do on the live stream, knowing that you're going to do it, for multiple weeks, and you're going to be able to use this one asset over and over again, so you don't have to constantly be creating new content all the time. But the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is that it wants to help that content get surfaced. And so when you go live on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is notifying your network with an alert saying, Colin Hirdman has gone live. And you're going to start attracting people into your live streams beyond the people you invite. And you're going to start getting more impressions that way. And the other thing that's really valuable is that when your live stream is done, you should grab the analytics of the page to see how many people attended, how many minutes were watched. But then go back to that live stream post, the recording, like a week later on LinkedIn, and see what your analytics look like there. I have gone back, the one that I did last week, or sorry, 2 weeks ago, when I went to it last week, the original live stream, I only had like maybe 20, 25 minutes of like a 25-minute live stream that was watched. But when I went back, I had over 3 hours of watch time on the recording. So
Wow.
there's a long tail effect that can happen with the content that you're building out if it's relevant into a specific group. You can get some long tail effect with that, and yeah, I've literally closed clients for our software company and for the Rainmaker LinkedIn service from doing these live streams.
So that's interesting. The Some people will go back and pay attention. Is there when you're doing a live stream? I'm just curious your thought. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean, brevity
Yeah,
or
so I would say this as a digital marketer for the last decade and a half: experiment. Experiment, see what works, what resonates. Try live streams, try recordings, do it at different lengths, And if you could even if like the presentation that I do is broken up into like 3 or 4 different sections. um, I could do a live stream on probably just one of those sections. It would only be like 10 minutes long. So that's the best advice I can give, is just to experiment, put stuff out there, and measure what's working and what isn't.
Yeah, it's like it's test, see what's working, and do more of what's working and do less of what's not working, and keep adjusting. And the faster you do that, the faster you dial it in,
Absolutely.
being consistent. So, I mean, I think there's some really solid things that salespeople, sales leaders, CEOs, business owners can think about and try to implement. But I really love the being authentic. I really love really dialing in who you want to talk to, because if you do that work to, to figure out who it is that you really help, it's so much easier to do the rest of it. It's so much
Absolutely.
easier to create content, because it's
Yep.
like you're talking to another person across from a coffee at a little table.
Yep.
So that's solid advice. So last question, Colin, past or present, any relationship with cigars?
Yeah. Quite a close relationship, actually. So, and probably some of my fondest memories even are attached to cigars. So I still smoke cigars. I'll smoke probably 1 or 2 a week. 95% of the time I'm doing that with my dad. And it's just a time for us to sit there for hour and a half, and just talk about life. And yeah, more cigars are smoked in the summer than in the winter here in Minnesota. But
Sure.
yeah, just I just find it to be a wonderful kind of escape from normal life, and it just slows you down. You're just there. You can't finish it any faster than that, and you're kind of just stuck there with that cigar. And I just love, yeah, just the variety of cigar types and flavors. And yeah, so that's something that I think is something I really cherish in life.
I don't hear enough of that, um, of hanging out with your dad.
Mm,
Whether it's on the deck or a cigar lounge or just
yep.
whatever, but just that, like, my dad doesn't smoke cigars, but I have a friend who, like, his two sons, they when they get together, whether it's for dinner or they just come over to see their dad,
Hmm.
it's inevitable that they end up on the deck
Mm,
smoking a cigar, usually some sort of cocktail in
yeah.
their hand, and it's their time to reconnect. They talk about stuff in the past, they talk about the future, they talk, somebody's got a problem, it's
Mm,
all vetted in that moment.
mm,
It's such a it's time, and it's the thing that can put us together. So I love
yeah.
the
Great.
fact that you do that with your dad. Do you have a
Yep.
place you can hide out in the wintertime, that in a garage or a shed someplace that you can heat up to have one in the winter?
We pretty much just got to go to a cigar shop.
Yeah.
Yep. 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 Don't have an indoor heated, yeah, private location. So
Did
yeah.
you guys do a lot of ice fishing in Minnesota? I mean, you may not be a fisherman, but
I am not a fisherman, but there is a lot of ice fishing and a lot of fishing happening all year round here for sure. Yeah, we're the land of 10,000 lakes, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
Ice fishing kind of boggles my mind a little bit. I've always thought of it as an organized drinking activity,
Oh
right? We're
no, for
just
sure.
blaming the fish. But I was at a friend's. He just coerced me to go. There's two of us in this little shanty, and without a lot of ventilation, right? So that
Yeah. Mhm.
that smoke that it got filled into that space pretty,
Oh wow.
pretty,
Yeah.
pretty. Two guys puffing away, so we had to actually
Right.
open the door, which
Yeah.
which doesn't help with the heating
Temperature.
situation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You got to smoke the cigar faster, build up more heat.
yeah, or just go someplace warm and not sit on ice. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yep.
Anyway, Colin, a lot of great value there. If somebody's interested in learning more about any one of your companies, what's I think we're going to have um, your website. Which one do you want them to check on? The Monkey Island or the Rainmakers? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah, so if you go to Monkey Island Ventures, so not adventures, but ventures, monkeyislandventures.com, you can see the different companies and see some of our story. And yeah, if you're interested in Rainmaker specifically, it's just rainmakergrows.com.
Yeah, but you can navigate from your main site to any of those
Yep,
companies and learn a little
yep,
bit
yep.
more.
Yeah,
Um, I love it. Great. I love the 5 Fs. I love the authentic language and the niching down. Um, I love that you're working with your friends. That's awesome. So,
yeah.
uh,
Well,
congrats
thanks.
and thank you much.